we have a distinguished panel which will give us specific areas in which railways contribute to the supply chain. So the panel has already been introduced. Mr. Anurag Sharma, CGM Dedicated Freight Corridor Corporation, Mr. S.K. Jha, ED Container Corporation, and Mr. Amit Kumar, Director, Pristine Logistics. Now, before I request them to answer the question, the panel discussion, I'll just mention that the key trends in railways that already have been covered, many of them, that Indian Railways is the world's second largest with about 85,000 kilometers and 7,000 stations. But the ton per kilometer cost is still high, is 3 times that of China. And major trends that are affecting the Indian Railways are the mass transportation in urban areas and metros, building high-speed rail corridors, and the trains running at about 300 kilometers per hour. Thirdly, autonomous trains and fully self-driving trains. Decarbonization, that is a zero emission, that is it, and artificial intelligence to prevent object collision and detection of objects on the way. And with this, I would start with the panel, and I'll request Mr. Anurag Sharma to take the opening ball. And the first thing is, please tell us something about DFC and how it is going to shake up the logistics and supply chain ecosystem in India. Mr. Anurag Sharma.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Sharma. DFC project is one of the biggest project that has ever been undertaken by Ministry of Railway, Government of India. This project relates to construction of dedicated freight lines for faster transportation of goods from one part of the country to another. So right now we are executing 2 corridors. One is Eastern Corridor that spans from Sanewal, Ludhiana up to Dankuri, West Bengal. And second one is from Western Corridor, that is from Dadri up to Jawaharlal Nehru Port Trust. So work is going on both these corridors, and one of the section in Eastern Corridor of around 350 kilometers has already been commissioned last year in December by Honorable Prime Minister of India. And the second portion in Western Corridor, that also around 300 kilometers has also been inaugurated this January by Honorable Prime Minister. So operations are going on both of these commissioned sections. See, these corridors are high-speed corridors. That means that they have been developed to carry freight trains at a speed of 100 kilometers per hour. They have been designed for a 25 MT axle load. That is, in a simple way, I would like to say that we will carry more load per wagon. More load will be transported. We will be carrying longer trains. Right now, we tried a Python Rick, also a 1.5 kilometer long train in Eastern Corridor as well as Western Corridor. So these corridors are totally electrified and auto signaled. That means, and all the level crossings are going to be eliminated. So the train will not be required to stop at any location except the designated locations. And thereby the speed, overall average speed of the train will be much higher than whatever we are getting right now on IR tracks. So that is what about this DFC corridor in brief. Now, regarding logistic part, I would say that before I start, I give you one simple fact. I tell you one simple fact. That is that, see, India is the biggest producer or second largest producer of coal in the world. But you will be surprised to know that India is also second largest importer of coal in the world. So this anomaly is basically because in the eastern part where our coal mines are located, we are not able to transport that coal to the western part of the country where all the power plants, thermal power plants are located. For those thermal power plants, the importing of coal is somehow cheaper as well as easier. So this is the anomaly that DFC corridor, after commissioning of DFC corridor, this anomaly is going to be removed. We will be transporting the goods in a faster manner from one part of the country to another. Now, regarding its impact on logistic cost and this transportation costs. So, right now, the cost of transportation on a particular finished goods in India is around 18%. So, suppose a goods is costing rupees 100, so the transportation cost is 18 rupees. Whereas in Europe as well as in China, it is less than 9 to 10%. So there is a sufficient gap to reduce this cost. So by introducing the freight corridors, these costs will be reduced substantially, because we will be carrying more load, we will be carrying the load faster, and our turnaround will be very fast. So the logistic cost and the this inventory cost is going to be reduced substantially in coming future.
Thank you. My next question is to Mr. Amit Kumar, Director, Pristine Logistics. Mr. Amit Kumar, can the railway substitute the road in FMCG or white goods supply chain?
Well, that's a good question, sir. As we just heard Anurag ji, dedicated freight corridors are going to change the nature of transportation on railways. But, the example that he gave, Anurag ji, with all due respects, was on with respect to coal. So the fact of the matter is that, railways is, totally focusing on coal today. Unfortunately, coal is not the mainstay of logistics overall. So while coal is 50% of what Indian Railway carries, it's certainly not 50% what is being carried in India. So that is where, where white goods and FMCGs come into play as a market, as commodities that, railways should start looking at very, very seriously. Now, can the railways substitute the road? As of now, it doesn't seem so. As of now, it seems the railway is still thinking coal. Now, the moment the railway starts to think beyond coal, there are loads of solutions available. What exactly is supply chain? Any supply chain, the supply chain of coal, for example, for power plants or steel plants is relatively a very, very simple thing. When it comes to FMCG and white goods, it's different. There are two parts of a supply chain, of course. The supply chain of raw material into the factory, and supply chain of finished products into the market. And if you look at it, what are we exactly looking for? What does road deliver that today rail doesn't? Number one, it's the speed of transit. Now, the speed of transit over a period of time with dedicated freight corridors seems to be something that is going to improve dramatically. Today, we are talking in terms of 20 kmph kind of average speeds. Hopefully, that should improve to at least 50. That would start competing with road. We're talking about reliability of transit time. So let's say a target time from, let's say, Calcutta to Delhi by road today is 2.5 days. For every 100 shipments, how many shipments actually to meet this target time of 2.5 days? In road, it's pretty high, almost 90% plus. On rail, as we know, all of us use rail. The reliability of transit times is an issue that again should be, taken care of with these dedicated freight corridors. But, we are just talking dedicated freight corridors. I'll come to why DFCs in itself is now a big problem for the way railway is thinking. Of course, the supply chains is just not transportation, road transportation or rail transportation. Transportation, as Anurag ji mentioned very correctly, it's about logistics. Now that includes whole loads of other things like warehousing, first mile, last mile, even unitizing, labeling, packaging, palletizing. all kinds of stuff related to moving the cargo from the point of its origin to its point of its destination is supply chain. Railway, when you talk just about railway, is just about transportation. So unless an ecosystem where all these other value additions are given, and cargo moving on rail is enjoying the value adds that today road is able to do, unless railway starts thinking in those terms, just with DFC, that solution will not come, especially when it comes to, more complicated supply chains available or required for, white goods and FMCGs. You got, again, of course, the quality of logistics is also extremely important in terms of wastages and damages. Now, today, if you look at the kind of rolling stock available with the Indian Railways, and if you would want, let's say, a refrigerator to move by the Indian Railways from a production unit in in Greater Noida to markets in West Bengal, it would be a flight of imagination to think that we can move them in BCN wagons. So that's without damage and waste. So it's there are issues around this question whether it's going to be possible to move white goods and FMCGs quickly. It's possible, but the railway has to start thinking beyond that. Information technology has a very important role to play today in supply chains, not just for maintaining its integrity, but also for informing and giving feedback to its customers. Today, we send some cargo on railway wagons. Voice is there, as we all know, but you need more than just a transportation OD kind of information to talk about quality logistics. There are issues, sir. I think there's miles to go before we could actually start talking in those terms. Dedicated freight corridor, I wanted to have one sentence around this. The railway is talking too much about dedicated freight corridor. That unfortunately is not covering the whole of India. And, this overemphasis on DFCs as a panacea for all solutions or all, challenges where railways can meet all challenges and start competing with road probably is not the right approach. And therefore, this focus away from DFC also needs to be brought in by the railways. I think since there's paucity of time, I can keep on talking and talking about this.
Thank you very much for your elaborate answer. And may I now go to Mr. S.K. Jha, Executive Director, Container Corporation of India, that is CONCOR, and request him to please elaborate on that the CONCOR is heavily dependent on rail operations. Is there any plan for diversification? And if you could also shift your screen slightly so that we can see you, you can move the screen. Yes, please. Yeah.
Am I visible?
Yes, please. Yeah, now very much.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, so that's a very valid question, very nice question. And even we keep asking ourselves, why so much dependence on railways for moving containers? So, I mean, there are two sides of it. One is that in a country of intercontinental distances, railway is definitely a better solution at present, although now good expressways and highways are coming, good rolling stock on road has come up, transit time on road have reduced. But having said all this, yes, for long distance and for moving 2,500 tons, 3,000 tons at one go, definitely railway is a better solution today. But now CONCOR is diversifying. In fact, it has started doing first mile, last mile logistics in a very big way since last year. And the share of FMLM in CONCOR's overall transportation is on rise. When we talk of FMLM, perhaps it gives an impression that I'm doing only first mile, last mile. In fact, we have also started servicing from origin to destination by road, but not in a very big way. But yes, as I said, as I began saying that for long distance and for carrying voluminous cargo, rail still remains the preferred mode. But then there are certain sectors where Concor has started experimenting with its customers by sending cargo through road also, directly from hinterland to the gateway ports, say from Agra to Mundra port, from Rauta road, that is Kota terminal to Mundra. We have also started from Dadri to Mundra by road. But again, the share is slowly rising. Now, I'll also touch upon one subject before I finish, because your question was very specific, why so much dependent on rail? And the simple answer is that I have lot of volume and there is a pressure from trade to move it faster, and rail remains the preferred mode. But one thing that I would like to mention here is that lot of cargo, which was lightweight cargo, which is generally being carried today in 40 feet containers, less than 20 tons of cargo. Now we have started capturing such cargo and started moving it by road. Yes, of course, in future it might again get diverted on upper deck in a double stack container train, which will move on dedicated freight corridor. Even today we are moving this cargo on upper deck in a double stack train. But yes, we have started moving such containers by road also.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this such key information. Thank you. Now, may I go back again to Mr. Anurag Sharma to please tell us what are the new concepts that DFC, that is Dedicated Freight Corridor Corporation, is going to introduce to boost supply chain in India. And that is the theme of this conference, supply chain.
Yeah. So before I answer this question, let me comment on the issue raised by Mr. Amit Kumar, and that is that DFC is overhyped. I think because we are in a nascent stage right now, a small portion of DFC has been commissioned, and things are developing day by day. See, right now, yesterday the government of Rajasthan has created a separate department for creation of infrastructure along the DFC routes. So many things are happening. So I assure Mr. Amit and this forum that DFC is not going to let anybody down, and we are going to create a big infrastructure for the benefit of society. Now, as far as your question, Mr. Sharma, is concerned, that DFC is introducing many new initiatives like RORO, RORO, wherein the loaded trucks are being carried through these our wagons from one point to another point. We have done a trial for that also between Rewari and Palanpur. Apart from that, the private freight terminal policy through which the private operators are also developing their freight terminals along the DFC routes. That is another new concept. We are planning for timetabled freight trains also, and this move is going on with the management in a big way. We are also offering land to private operators to create their multimodal logistic parks and loading points and all that. So these are some of the new concepts that we are going to take. But see, the reliability, the speed, and I mean that is going to be our main focus. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. May I now go to Mr. Amit again, Mr. Amit Kumar. Can you please tell us if there are any successes in logistics which the railways can take pride on and build its future plans?
That was an interesting question, and I'm happy that Anurag ji is responding to some of the concerns that I raised. This makes the discussion more interesting. I and Anurag ji will have a dialogue outside of this meeting to take forward our discussion. Certainly don't want to waste the time here. I am very, very proud of the DFC. Having said that, uh, you're talking about which um, uh, any models or any products that the railway has developed or created over a period of time that could become a template for future successes. In around 2006, railways had opened up the sector of container train business to the private sector. And what that had brought in, with all due respects to Santosh Jhaji here representing Concor, was private initiative in this sector. Now, like any other sector that got privatized, like banking or insurance. This brought in a lot of quality and private initiative, creativity in the sector. Um, you know, the most interesting thing that happened here was bringing in new kinds of cargo that railway was probably or previously, or let's say, the public sector was not really able to target initially. There have been great successes by the private sector. For example, bringing in the tile movement that was not happening before 2006, or kind of integration that happened with coastal shipping that again was not happening with the CTO businesses before 2006. All this happened post 2006. The other thing that I think really railways did a great thing was the the bringing of the private freight terminal policy. This created logistics parks, which was something more than what the earlier template of goods sheds. Now, as you know, goods sheds was a kind of logistics parks where railway wagons could come in bringing in cargo, and multimodal movement could happen. Things like cement could get unloaded and taken to warehouses and godowns. But what private freight terminals brought in was a completely new product that the railways got. So new kind of cargo again came in here. For example, liquid cargo that was moving. I can tell you, my own company, there's a lot of liquid crude edible oil coming in into Ludhiana and Kanpur from Kandla and Bangladesh completely by road because of the because of the problems of the goods sheds not being able to provide terminal handling infrastructure for crude edible oils, liquid cargo. So, we as private freight operators were able to create such infrastructure where, crude edible oil could be brought in BTPN wagons, railway tank wagons, handling could be done, and storage could be done at these railside at these railside facilities, these PFTs, that could not be done by good sheds. Now, these are the templates that are going to work in future. So when we talk about supply chain of FMCG and more complicated supply chains, these logistics parks, and happy to note that DFC is also going for these PFT policies that was initiated by the railways. Not so happy with the model they have adopted, by the way, Anuragji. It's even more. It's on certain aspects. It's it's deviated from the railway PFT policies, made it more problematic, actually, more expensive. But again, a dialogue to be had separately. But these logistics parks is where supply chains will happen. And if railway were to create solutions for complicated supply chains, like I was earlier mentioning about FMCGs, for example, or durable goods, then these are the fulcrums on which the railway has to move ahead, and also the DFC as well, of course, being a railway-based solution. So where hubbing can be done, warehousing can be done, multimodal transitions can be done, and these value adds that I was talking about, required for distribution, can be done. Um, And these PFTs have to necessarily, these logistics parks have to necessarily be privately funded, privately managed. So the thing, that the railway is managing cargo or control or handling cargo needs to go away as soon as possible. The more the private sector comes into this, the earlier more cargo like FMCGs will and white goods will come to the railways. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, my final question to Mr. Jha. Kindly help us to understand that Concur is a Navratna logistics company. What is international track and trace system that you have?
So, yeah, that's a good question. But allow me to take a cue from what Amit said. Yes, a lot of credit goes to, first of all, Government of India for opening up this logistics sector for private participation, and a lot of innovations came in. A lot of new products started moving by rail and will continue to do so. And Concor also, despite being a public sector undertaking, has also started moving a lot of such cargo, which was traditionally not moving on rail. But today it is moving through containers. In fact, Concor has done a lot of new experiments now in the field of bulk loading. So a lot of food grain is moving through bulk loading. Then a new concept of container warehousing has begun, where we don't have warehouse, or where parties don't need to spend a lot on secondary transportation, searching for a warehouse, multiple handling. So a new concept which was never done earlier. Similarly, the heavy haul of new rolling stock. Now 100 tons carrying capacity trains are inducted by Concor. So you can imagine the kind of cargo that will move, which was otherwise it was not able to move. So I just thought that I'll compliment what Amit said. And yes, in the field of distribution logistics also, a lot of work is being done by Concor, and other PCTOs are also doing a lot of things. Now, as far as international track and trace is concerned, you see, why Concor? I mean, every PCTO today is, maybe the private operators are more digitized, more smart companies. But as far as Concor is concerned, well, first of all, the concept of continuous cargo visibility was introduced by Concor in the form of having KYC at all the terminals. So today, a trader can, just by filling the container number on its mobile app, can know the exact location of the containers. The moment it is loaded on a train, that location is also known. Of course, the entire transit is known to the trade. So the idea of providing continuous cargo visibility, as Amit had also said, that today trade is just not wanting to know that the container has been loaded. They want to know and trace the exact movement of their cargo and the container, its whereabout. So as far as movement of containers and its cargo is concerned, Concor provides timely information to its trade through its system, because that is very much possible. Now, as far as the demand of containers globally is concerned, if you intend to ask that how the supply chain is managed by Concor, then there is a third partner, that is the shipping line. And the imbalance of the demand and supply scenario is known more to the shipping line, that if there is a shortage of containers, then they move, they import empty containers to the hinterland, and and vice versa. So that particular aspect is taken care more by shipping line. We are merely the container booking and transporting agency.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jha. And with that, we come to the end of this. I thank of the panel members, Mr. Anurag Sharma, Mr. S.K. Jha, and Mr. Amit Kumar for the wealth of quality information provided in a very, very short time. Thank you very much indeed, and I hand it back to the organizers.
Thank you.
Thank you.